What's up, guys? Thank you for clicking on the clip. First off, though, I wanted to foot stomp that the Crow Days of Sodom Indiegogo campaign is live now up until around the beginning of August. This is a very important passion project. Important because it's The Crow. We all love the first movie. We wanted to make a movie that honors the legacy, doesn't use the name Eric Draven. And it's its own thing, okay? It's not a remake of this, and we just want to make this happen, all right? We have some celebrity talent behind it already signed up. We have the return of Lawrence Mason, who played Tintin in the first movie. Our biggest goal is just to make this the best Crow movie we can possibly make. A good sequel for a change, okay? Even though, arguably, I like City of Angels, all right? So, yeah, we can't do this without you, okay? You are a part of this, so please, please, please check out the Indiegogo. A lot of perks there, and help support this project, okay? Without you guys, it's not gonna happen, all right? So anyway, I'll put an Indiegogo link down in the info box, and pin it down in the comments too, all right? Anyway, enjoy the clip, guys. Thank you. So I'm going to quickly rank all 4 Crow movies. How many of you guys have seen all 4 Crow movies? Have all of you seen all 4 Crow movies? I would wager that there's probably one that you might have not seen, okay? But I guess I'll go worst to best. Worst to best. Okay. So the absolute worst is Wicked Prayer. Wicked Prayer is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It's horrible. It just doesn't feel like the normal Crow movies, which is fine if you got a good story there. But I think the biggest crime of many crimes that this movie makes is the casting of Edward Furlong as the Crow. He seems lost in the character. And the action scenes are really laughable. You know, there's a scene, I think, in a bar, and you can clearly tell that he's on wires, and he's just kind of like floating across. It's so bad. And you got some bigger stars in this, like David Boreanaz, and you got Dennis Hopper in there, but you can tell they're just like laughing at this thing. Some of the lines that Dennis Hopper has to say, wow. I've reviewed all 4 movies, but I wasn't even going to review this one, and then like somebody like dared me to review it, and I did it, and it was like freaking 7 years ago, something like that. But it's pretty funny. It's hilarious. The soundtrack is kind of non-existent, you know. Most of the Crow movies have a really good rock soundtrack, but this one doesn't really. I've only watched it, I think, all the way through maybe once. Yeah, it's really bad. And I'm an Edward Furlong fan. I don't dislike everything that he does, but he was just, sometimes you're just not the right fit, and he was poorly miscast in The Crow Wicked Prayer. Which leads us to the next one, The Crow Salvation. And I'll say this right now, the rest of the Crow movies, I can watch them. The Salvation, I think the biggest problem with Salvation is it does feel like a TV movie, but it has a really kick-ass rock soundtrack. I think it leans a little bit too heavily on the rock soundtrack. It feels like they play a rock song, and then there's like maybe a 5-minute gap, and then they play another rock song. It's one of those movies that it kind of depends on the rock music when you don't really want to do that. You want to have some nice character moments. I think some of the moments are a little cringe, especially the flashback scenes with him. It feels like they didn't really flesh those scenes out, and maybe they were on a time crunch, and hey, we got to get these scenes quick, and it feels rushed and really silly and laughable, and you just don't really feel the emotion, I think Eric Mabius. He does a pretty good job as the Crow. I like that they tried something different. He was electrocuted, and I like what they did with the makeup. I think it's kind of cool how they did the makeup. It's very different than... This is probably the most different Crow makeup out of all 4 movies. You know, whereas like Edward Furlong, I think they tried to go back to the original makeup. But this one, the makeup's literally like burned onto his face when he's electrocuted. So, and there's some cool scenes in this too. There's definitely some cool scenes. All right. This might be better than part 2, if I'm being honest. It's so close, but both movies are so different in feel. So by default, I put it at number 3. Okay. Which leads me to number City of Angels. Yeah. So City of Angels is number 2. This movie has grown on me quite a bit. I think it is gorgeous to look at. And I'll even say this. It might be one of the most beautiful looking Crow movies out of all 4 movies. I like that it's set in LA. It feels like LA. And you know how some movies, you know that they're kind of filmed on a sound stage or a backlot or something like that. And most of the time you prefer it to be on location. But for some reason, because of the fantasy nature of The Crow, I kind of like it to be more creative and maybe be on a sound stage because they're dark movies anyway. So I like to be taken to another world, right? And that's what the Crow movies do. I don't feel like, even though that's set in LA, I feel like I'm in a different world with The Crow, you know? And The Crow 2, I think Vincent Perez gives a very interesting and unique performance. He did not try to copy Brandon Lee at all. I think he captures the emotion quite well. You know, he almost gives it too much. You know, you could say maybe a little bit of restraint there because, man, he really goes for it. So I think he might go off the cliff on a few scenes. But the scene where he resurrects out of the water is so freaking badass. Like I love that. Again, that might be my favorite resurrection scene because in the first movie, the resurrection, he just crawls out of a grave. But man, visually stunning. Loved Mia Kirshner as Sarah. Yeah, I'll even say this too. We literally tried to get Mia Kirshner, but she's like almost impossible to get a response from. Okay, and we just didn't have time to hammer down on it. But yeah, I love Mia Kirshner. She's mesmerizing. You know, I might have fell in love with Mia Kirshner in this movie. If I'm being honest. Okay, all right. And so, of course, number 1. Oh, and by the way, one more thing about City of Angels. Iggy Pop is not a good actor at all. Okay? So, yeah, of course, number 1. I mean, what else can you say about the original Crow? Still to this day, one of the most unique films I've ever seen. And I remember when it came out, it was compared to Batman 89. But I think it's almost unfair to even compare it to Batman 89. It feels even far different than that. And I just watched Batman 89 again recently. And The Crow, I was watching it with my wife the other day, and she was just like, wow, this movie is just gorgeous looking. It's escapism. It's one of the most unique looking films ever. And it almost feels black and white. They muted out like everything, you know? And that's in camera. You know, that's not like in post. They had to mute out everything. In camera, everything looks like it's muted out. And, you know, Brandon Lee, thank God they were able to resurrect this film and make it and release it because he still had like 2 weeks of shooting to do. But they decided, you know what, and to honor him, let's finish this movie. What's up, Chester? And so they finished the movie with, funny enough, guys, trivia quiz for you, okay? Who played the stand-in for Brandon Lee after he passed away? Do any of you guys know that? David Thorson. Have you seen the Crow TV series? No, I caught like a little bit of it back in the day, like back in the 90s when it first came out. I might have watched a little bit of it, but yeah, I just could not. It was hard for me to watch anything that's, you know, Eric Draven, especially so soon after Brandon Lee had passed away. Yeah. Yeah, CJM. Chad Stahelski, who is the director of the John Wick movies. He was Brandon Lee's stand-in the scenes that they had to finish, which is really interesting. What's up, guys? You are at the end of the DD Live clip. What I do is I like to clip these out if I think the topic is important or something that's newsworthy. So thank you for watching, and if you want to watch more, you can go over here, you can go over here, click on one of those, and hopefully I can do this for 20 seconds, which I think I did. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching, guys.